Well, it's Friday morning at about 10, and it's time for more Apollo stuff. So, yeah, keep working on this. It's coming along really slowly because there's just all sorts of little things that are making it slow, I guess. Um, One is that I have been cut off like around noon. The second half of the stream seems to be cursed. I'll just say that because on Monday, well, it wasn't really a curse, but it was, there were appointments that had to be kept, and so I needed to end around like 12:30. And then on Wednesday, the power went out. So if anybody was watching the stream on Wednesday and it just suddenly stopped, it's because everything just suddenly stopped. It's kind of weird. We do have power outages here periodically for, I don't know, reasons. Some of them make sense, like there's a big storm and power lines go down and substations are out of commission and that sort of thing. But several times we've had power outages, like on Wednesday when it was clear and there was no wind. So who knows? We keep saying squirrel got in the substation kind of thing. But it could be anything from like someone hitting a power pole somewhere upstream from where we are. Anyway, the power went out, everything went dead. It didn't last too long, but things didn't boot up again. And so I couldn't really resume on Wednesday. Things got fixed yesterday, and it looks like, stuff is running all right. So I'll be doing more Apollo stuff today. There is a variety of things, all of which are, some are interesting, some aren't. The thing I was working on Wednesday before the power outage was figuring out how to get the windows into the LEM. I'm still messing around with that. Yeah. I don't even have any flat surfaces to lay things on anymore. I cleaned everything up not too long ago, but then it just keeps converging. About the only clear spot on the entire work surface right now is this right here. That's it. Anyway, this Lunar Excursion module, originally called the Lunar module, LM, later called LEM because LEM was fun to say, has these windows. And the way the clear parts on this model work is that there are not molded clear parts. You would kind of expect that there would be a clear part that was molded and would just set, that they would just set right in there and have a little flange around the outside, and you'd cement that, and that would be how the window would go in. But no, these windows are cut out of, this isn't the thing. There is a sheet of clear plastic, but this is just like it. It's part of a carryout container. Fortunately, we have carryout containers, and so I can test different things because the plastic is very, very similar. So on Wednesday, I was trying to figure out, I made copies of the template and cut a couple pieces out, and I need to cut more out because I need to practice it. And I discovered a couple of things. One is that the template doesn't really match the window, right? Of course it doesn't. It's probably okay as long as the clear plastic that I cut is larger than the window opening on all dimensions, so that when it is finally, put in place with some sort of adhesive, it won't show from the outside because you can kind of look through the windows. Okay, you can kind of see through the windows a little bit, but you can't really see the inside of the window. So I played around trying to get it into position with fingers and tweezers and all sorts of things, and started to find some way of getting it there. And if there's adhesives on it, I want it to like go right where it needs to be right away and not slide around, because if it slides around, then whatever the adhesive is going to smear on the window. So the first thing I was trying was this stuff called the world's best canopy cement. At least that's what it said on the card that it came on, the blister pack. But it is a clear parts cement and window maker, and it does sort of adhere. It's hard to see these clear parts on white on clear and everything, right? And it will hold, but not really strongly. I mean, you can touch it and stuff, but I flipped it up a little bit and it popped right off. The other thing it says is that you can use it to make windows. So I said, okay, well, let me spread some around on here. So I spread some around, and it does dry. It's a lot like this thing we called realistic water that we used for streams and sewers and necromancy cauldrons, that kind of thing, pools. So I could probably try that too. But what I was thinking here is that if for example, I use this as the adhesive and I tried to attach the window and I didn't get it located just right and it slid around and it smeared, is that I would just cover the whole front of it with this stuff. Okay, and then the smearing wouldn't matter because the whole thing would be smeared. So that's a possibility. It's going to take, it's just going to take a lot of different efforts, different attempts to get the windows right. And I need to put those in sooner than later. Because after I paint the inside of this, the inside of the lem, both parts, is supposed to be painted light blue. So I need to mask these. Okay. And then paint them light blue. And then they need to be put together, right, to make a lem. But I can't put them together until the window is in, because once they are put together, it is not possible to install the windows. So, yeah, you may end up just watching me try and fail over and over getting the windows in there, because they don't, there's sort of a little flat area around it, but like up here, okay, the corner extends a little bit too far, right? And then it goes vertical. So it bumps up against it along the top. That surface is not flat with the rest of them. So if the window is actually on that surface, it doesn't make contact with the ones around it. Anyway, it's going to be work. I have to try to figure out how to do it. So this one is stuck on with the clear contact cement, and it does what it says. It does not cloud this plastic. Okay. That is, it doesn't dissolve it. But it isn't really sticky. Okay. And it doesn't really hold that well. So I'm going to do some more testing. And this test, to cut this off. Otherwise it won't fit where I'm going to test it. This test is going to be using contact cement, which I've used with some success before. In attaching various parts to this model. So I'm just going to do that now because I've got all these little plastic bits out here from Wednesday's shortened session. So this stuff shouldn't dissolve this plastic either, but it's hard to apply. It's very gelatinous, so I can put some on here. Keep it on there. It'd be nice if there was some way to thin this down. I wonder if there is. All right. So the problem with both of these adhesives is that if there's enough on it to adhere to this very small area here, okay, it oozes. Both of them are kind of gelatinous. This one is much thinner than the contact cement, but they'll ooze out and show on the outside. So yeah, so one thing that I am going to do is that instead of using the little plastic sheet that came with the model, because there isn't that much of it, is I've got a lot of this kind of stuff, the carry out container stuff, and I'm just going to use that so that if it doesn't work, if it smears too much, I'll just pull it off, clear off the cement, both of these, the contact cement and the clear canopy cement, wipe off if you get it off quickly enough. The contact cement definitely works. I mean, if I can get it in the right place, it grabs right away and holds, and I know it'll hold pretty well. And it doesn't seem to harm the surface of the plastic. Doesn't do anything to it. I'm going to spread some on here, let it set for a bit, and then wipe it off and see. And then I'll see if it mars the surface. And if it doesn't mar the surface, then even though it might be difficult to use, I know that I can clear it off. If it oozes around, I can pull it off and wipe it off and start over. And if I use this kind of material, I won't use this one because it's, I don't know if you can see it, it's got all sorts of ripples and pock marks on it. Let's just say that when making the cover for a carry-out container, the process isn't carefully done. It is not. It's just all full of dimples and stuff. But it's a one use only, toss it away kind of thing. Anyway, that is. I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, I think it'll be an interesting stream, to watch me try over and over and over and over and over and over again to get these windows in. Probably, cutting out dozens of little windows and trying different shapes. Like here, like this is really close to being the shape, close enough that I can show you how this works. So if I grab it with the tweezers, okay, and I have to have it at the right angle because the windows are angled, and try to get it into place, okay, I can't just set it down. I can't just set it down without it moving around. And so what I'm going to end up doing is on the bottom of the triangle here, where it goes right there, is I'm actually going to cut it so that there's a longer tab. Like there's a little tab sticking out there. I'm going to cut it out that way. I'm going to try that so that I have a thing I can hold with the tweezers and not have it the tweezers bump into the surface where I'm trying to attach this. Let's just say, I don't know, none of this works. It just doesn't work. Yeah, it popped right out. So I'm going to play around with this a little bit. No, I'm not going to play around with it anymore because it just went flying and I lost it. Anyway, yeah, so that's a thing I'm going to be working on eventually. Eventually, probably being, not too long from now. So this is where I put on the contact cement, and what I'm testing here is whether I can wipe it off. Surface. Yeah, it does not dissolve the surface. It doesn't, after it sits there for a bit, it doesn't come off real cleanly. But that's why I'm going to be making the windows out of this material, this takeout container cover material, rather than the stuff that came with the model, because I know I'll probably go through like 4 or 5 before I get one of the windows in right. So this is this was the contact cement. Test one other thing. I've got two other adhesives. I've got this stuff that is the model cement. The regular cement. There's another flat surface. I'll try to adhere it here. I want to see what happens, what this does to this kind of plastic. Whether it even holds, I don't know. This is a sort of contact cement as well. It's the same issue, though, is that if there's enough on there to hold it, when it's applied, it oozes out. So it has to be like in incredibly minuscule, tiny little bits. I'm going to see. I'm just going to put some on the surface here. If it dissolves the plastic, it happens really quickly. Yeah, that isn't the best. It does hold. It holds pretty well. but it does cloud it. So right now I'm kind of leaning toward the contact cement approach, but that will here, this piece will just go there, so it's out of the way while it sits around and acts like it's isn't any solvent for this. I'm just wondering, should we do some experiments? Oh, that was another old TV show. What was it called? Ask Mr. Wizard? I think it was called that. Ask Mr. Wizard. It was a science show where there was actually a lab, and they did like simple experiments, like litmus paper kinds of things with potatoes and stuff, all sorts of things that were done, I believe, in a way that was safe. I'll just put it that way. That was safe for people to do on their own. Try some stuff here. None of this is dangerous. Okay, I'm just going to try some solvents on the contact cement to see if it thins, if it can be thinned at all, and if it is, still works. Because the problem with this is the getting it applied. You know, doing it just made a blot. I made a blot on the paper here. The contact cement seems to be totally unaffected by the solvent. This that didn't do any dissolving. Okay, well, this isn't clean, but it's isopropyl alcohol. It's also very safe. I've been using it as a paint thinner, as a brush cleaner. I'm going to put that on the contacts and see if that does anything. I'm having fun with solvents today, just trying to see what happens. It also seems to be immune to that. It keeps it from sticking to anything. So it didn't make it better. The thing about this contact cement is it has some really good qualities that I've used, especially on minifigs where I've broken off like a sword blade. Okay, and I can make a new one out of a toothpick, but getting it attached just right, like one would say, the ideal thing would be a CA glue because it would just grab, right? But that means that I have to get it in just the right position at the right orientation, and I can't do that. So I've used this contact cement because it grabs itself right away. So the sword blade, if I touch it, the hand, the minifig's hand and the sword blade, okay, and the sword blade will stick to it. But if it's like angled wrong, okay, or if it needs to move a little bit, the contact cement has a period of time during which it will hold it so it doesn't fall on the floor and disappear. And it grabs itself, but it also stays actually for quite a while, for like a couple of days. It is flexible. And that's a real advantage in that kind of situation. Anyway, I'm not going to mess around with this anymore yet now. Maybe later in the stream, maybe not. I don't know. But it's just like, how do I get the windows to attach, right? I do have yet one more adhesive. It is it's a brush-on cement, liquid cement. It's a little different composition than the one that's in here. But I imagine it'll have the same thing. It will cloud it. So if it slipped, if it didn't like go right into place exactly where it needs to be, and it slipped, then it'll cloud the surface. So the even though it holds really well for my test, yeah, that will be a problem. So it looks like I'm either going to use the contact cement or the clear canopy glue. And the contact cement, it's just what I'm going to give it a try when I actually get around to trying to install some windows in there. I'm going to do it with contact cement as my first go, because if it's not in place, or it smears around, or if it gets on the surface of the window, I know that I can pull it off, and if I get to it within like a half an hour, I can clean the contact cement off of the surface and not have it marred in any way. The surface of the inside surface of the lem here, that's what I need to clean off. I would just throw away the window and cut out a new one. Okay, well, what you're looking at is a blank paper towel. That's not very interesting. So let me move this box of parts up here. These are the parts of the ascent stage, the top half of the lunar module, or the LEM. And what I have done already, believe it or not, is I have cleaned up and assembled parts of it. You can see some seams here where these pieces went on. Okay, you can see that. And this piece went on, and these two pieces went on, and I have put some filler in, sanded down the seams as well as I could get them, and it looked okay. It looks like they belong there, like they've been attached and not just thrown on. So there might be the seams might still end up showing a little bit after this is completed, but they won't be like they were before I did the filling and sanding. A real pro would have seams that totally disappeared. They'd have the right filler material and the right sanding technique and the right patience and the right skills. But I can come close. I can come close to doing what I call B+ work. Not quite A level, but sometimes not far off. Okay, let me just talk about what needs to be done yet. Obviously, a lot needs to be done yet, right? But done maybe like some of it today even. These little brackets here fit into these slots here. As you can see, they fit very poorly, if at all. They don't. They came in two halves. They didn't bother molding these as one piece. And the two halves were different sizes. You can probably see that. to my fingers that one half is smaller than the other half. And looking back at it, well, the smaller half had the pins, the alignment pins, and the larger half had the holes into which the pins went. What I probably should have done, but I didn't, and now it's too late. What I probably should have done is, instead of attaching, the two halves together the way they were supposed to be done, is, having noticed that one is bigger than the other, what I should have done was just sanded off the alignment pins and put the two small halves together and the two big halves together, and then they would have been different sizes, but they'd be on opposite sides of the lem, and you wouldn't have noticed. But as it is, you will definitely notice, because these are just awful. So one thing I need to do is just do a lot of plastic removal to make the big half the same size as the little half, and then test fit them so that they would fit on here. What will happen is that the alignment pins for the reaction control jets that attach to these, okay, they're barely visible. They are going to disappear. They will still be there. Well, they'll just disappear, and I'll just have to freehand it, putting these tiny little rocket nozzles on the brackets. That will be one of the very last things that's done on the lem. But I've kind of been putting it off, but I can't any longer. I need to manipulate these so that they are actually usable. And that's probably what I'll be doing. I did manage to paint these, though. See, I did some painting once. I got these antenna that attach in various places on here, like this one. This one's kind of cool. It goes like this. That kind of moves a little bit if you want it to. This one goes in a little spot here, and then this one goes up on the top. Anyway, I got those painted. That was some relaxing painting stuff. There's 3 different colors on what. I don't know if you can tell, but the strut's darker than the dish, and on this one, at least, the part, the antenna part, as opposed to the dish part, is slightly darker. So that got fancy. This is the hatch that goes between the command module and the lunar excursion module. Goes up on the top. Okay. Astronauts go in and out. So I need to clean these up. I need to mask these so that I can paint the inside blue and not the outside. So that means putting masking tape around all these weird edges, right? And then covering over the outside with some paper. This is the standing up inside the lem astronaut. This figure is supposed to go. It's supposed to be there isn't a place to attach it, really. It's set up. This figure is so that you can look at it. Okay, if you look through the window, which, if it ever gets installed and isn't cloudy, you're supposed to be able to see this astronaut looking out through the window, landing the lem. Peek. Okay, but just like almost everything else on this model, there really isn't any place really for it to stand. There's no flat surface. The flat surface is in the middle. Okay, but the astronaut would be over to the side. I'll show that to you on the instructions. It's just one of those things. No, I guess they got it standing in the middle. Yeah, that's the only flat surface. So this has been primed and painted white. This suit has virtually nothing to do with the real suits that they actually wore. Okay, but the visor is supposed to be painted gold, and even though the painting instructions don't show it, I looked up the moon suit. You know, we've got some in museums here. The gloves are gray, and the bottoms, just the soles of the boots are gray as well. And there's supposed to be some red and blue connectors on the front of the suit for ventilation and air and things, and there aren't any. So I don't know. When I get around to painting this, I might take a look at maybe doing something like that. I might do some little detail things, like there's a little a rim around the visor. Maybe I'll touch that. There's a little bit of a clasp there. Maybe I'll put a tiny bit of gunmetal color or silverish, you know, chainmail silver or something, just so that there's some features on the front. There's these shoulder belts that are supposed to be painted light blue according to the directions, but there aren't any shoulder belts, and there's nothing light blue on the actual suits. What there is there's patches and an American flag patch on the shoulder, and I am not going to make an effort to paint a little bitty flag on the shoulder. So anyway, that's the stuff that needs to be done. And I guess I need to work on these. I can't get anywhere until these are done, really. So yeah, I'm gonna get out the file and start making them usable. I'm going to try to not take off more plastic than I need to. To remove quite a lot. So I'm going to be using a file to do this rather than sandpaper, because there's just so much reduction that needs to be done. This would be a good one to use the triangle, maybe. No, it's not. The triangle goes the wrong way. So, yeah, this is just going to be slow, very slow and tedious as I try to carefully get the two halves to match up. Just getting rid of the alignment pin for the reaction control jet. Doing this, carefully, but with cautious optimism. When I've shaped these kinds of things in the past, they've usually turned out okay. Nothing as radical as this, though. This is like the most significant reshaping of anything I've had to do on any model so far. The three that I built. The three, you'd say. What were the other two? Well, the other two, the one that immediately preceded this, was a vintage Renwall cutaway nuclear missile launching submarine, the George Washington kit, which was built from three authentically vintage kits that were made in the 60s. They were never reissued. They had different versions of them. They had updated versions, but the originals weren't reissued. So I got myself some originals that had been started. I've said this before, people collect models, and what they want are pristine models, shrink wrapped still if possible, cellophane wrapped, shrink wrapped, but cellophane wrapped on the box. But at a minimum, they want the parts to be still in their original plastic bags. Well, sometimes those show up and they're really quite expensive, and they're complete, but it would be, People want them like that. They don't want them built. So to build the models, I bought some that had already been started. Whoa, okay. Well, that wasn't good. A little bit of lesson here. I should have been doing this over the box, because if I would have dropped it into the box, it would have stayed in the box. But or a box, I will get a box. But as it is, no, I dropped it on the floor. And I saw it, and it bounced underneath the edge of the workbench. And now you are going to watch me leave and talk to myself as I'm crawling around on the floor, trying to find the piece I just dropped. Yay. There I am, crawling around on the floor. I found a little window, the clear window that I lost. Well, now, that was just terrible. That was terrible. I need a stick, and I need to, fish underneath there and get that part. But even the part is piece of balsa wood from when I used to do radio controlled airplanes. I collected a whole bunch of little bits like that. Too, but so I am telling you what I'm doing. I'm laying on the floor, looking at the piece, putting the stick piece in. And you stand up. We also found a clothespin that's all covered in filth on the floor. There. That's still standing. So that's the kind of thing that happens on this stream, is that there's an oops. That oops was recoverable, fortunately. What I really don't want to be doing is I don't want to be filing this into this box, because then the parts that I've got are going to be covered in filing and sanding dust. And looking to see if I have another appropriate container. Really? What's in this box? There's a box here that I've been using for parts, but I think it's empty at the moment. No, it's got the parts for the descent stage, the part that lands on the moon. That's all full of stuff. Well, here, I'll just use this. This is my box of, this is miscellaneous stuff. It's just the little wires you use to clear the nozzles of the cement, nails and pins to use for poking and prodding and positioning things, a little stick, and an extra Polaris missile from the Renwall submarine kit. Yeah, so I'm going to put a paper towel over all of that, so that paper towel will catch the sanding, filing dust, dirt. And if I drop it again, I'm hoping it will land in this box. This piece is definitely getting smaller. Oh yeah. So I was talking about the models I'd built before. So the submarine model took a long time because it was quite different from this in a sense. There were billions and billions of tiny little parts from the inside, ladders and chairs and tables and bunks and periscopes and all sorts of stuff, right? And control panels that had little dials molded into them. So it was that the submarine involved a good deal of detail painting. So to call this relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons was actually fairly accurate description of what happened with the submarine, because there was a lot of painting involved with tiny little brushes. Okay. This whole thing, this Apollo thing, is painted as well, but the pieces are really large, and most of them, almost all of them, really had to be spray painted. And so this has been a good deal of relaxing masking, masking with Dyson Dungeons as I prepared parts to be spray painted. Yeah. So they're, other than like these antenna, okay, and some of the internal components of the service module, there hasn't been very much painting on this model, at least on stream. I can't show the spray painting on stream because there isn't a studio to do that. Been able to see the results of spray painting, but not the spray painting process. Well, this is coming along. The high parts are turning, are matching up with the lower parts. The whole thing is a little smaller. I want to see how this fits when I get this one done. I'm going to test fit it. Here, it's going to look small compared to the bracket that's holding it, but the part is what I've got. I've only got, unless I try to convince Alexis to rosin print replacements, and she probably would. It would take like 15 hours of her time, and she's got much better things to do. So I'm just going to manipulate these parts so that they are usable. So the submarine, was a lot of very, very fine detail painting, which probably didn't show up very well on the stream because it was like me hunched over these tiny little parts that oftentimes wandered off screen. But it was fun to build because that was a kit that I actually built when it first came out, or within a year or so after it first came out in the 1960s. And I did not do the same kind of painting then that I did this time around. Painted fairly, not very many of the parts actually ended up being painted when I built it the very first time. But it's a cool model. I mean, it sort of conceptual detail rather than historically accurate detail, really. But there's neat parts to it. The control room looks pretty good. Whether it's the actual control room or not, who knows? Probably not. But I had a lot of panels with dials and levers and buttons and stuff on it. The galley was stupidly detailed. I mean, they had hanging hams in a cooler and a faucet on the sink. That was actually it took forever to paint it. I'm sure it felt like forever to anybody who was watching the stream. But it came out okay. It's actually quite hard to see. It's buried in the back of the model, which is unfortunate because it's the one part that I probably did the best job of painting on. But anyway, I know it's there. And I said I had done 2 before at the submarine. And this didn't get very much attention because apparently people are not really big Big Daddy Roth fans. Okay. But when I was young, I built all of the Finks, all of the ones that I knew of anyway. I think there were 1 or 2 that I missed, but I did the Sir Fink and the Rat Fink and the Rat Fink on a bike and Angel Fink and Fink Eliminator and all those. Well, they reissued those, and I bought all the reissues because, nostalgia kind of thing, and completed the Fink Eliminator, and it came out pretty well. It came out better than when I did it when I was a kid. Not perfect, but it came out really pretty well. But I don't think there's not a huge audience for that. There seems to be more of an audience for like Renwell submarines, or maybe even the Apollo. I don't know. Well, this is getting into shape. It's a little distorted. Shouldn't be a real issue. The issue is, it's there. There is an attachment, a place to attach the reaction control jets, and that's the important thing. See how this fits. This is going to fit poorly. Yeah, it's okay. It will be, there's gaps that will show. And when I cement this in, I'll do the same thing I've done with the others, is I'll fill them in and then sand them down. It's usable now. Okay, at least it's usable. Wonder if it's reversible. Yeah, I have to make sure that I put this in correctly. I might even just cement this in right now because it seems to fit. Or at least I'm going to leave it on here like this because it seems to fit like this pretty well, and not if I turn it around. Well, there, it's a little distorted and all, but it came out okay. Let's do the other one. Let me do the other one. I don't know why I keep saying plural. But looking like this is going to take, well, when is it, 11 now? Yeah, this is taking a while. It is distorted on the bottom as the other one was. But once I'm done with, kind of getting these all usable, I will test fit each one on each side in each of the 2 orientations to get the best fit. Like that other one fit one way and not the other. Just kind of it. Expect the same thing will happen with this, that it will fit better one way than the other. And then I will, once I get how they fit best, I will cement them in. I'm not going to mess around waiting, because then I'll forget which which orientation worked best, right? So, yeah, if you get something working, just get on with it. Well, this is a good time to talk about Dice and Dungeons, right? Dice and Dungeons is not me. Dice and Dungeons is a group of family and friends who put on an amazingly excellent Dungeons and Dragons show. And we stream that on Twitch with a live chat at 2:00 on Sundays, Eastern Daylight Time, currently. And usually that's 3 Sundays a month. And previous episodes are then posted on YouTube and also podcasts as a podcast. And so if you were not like following the Dice and Dungeons campaign up till now and you wanted to, get some of the backstory of the characters or just relive some amazing moments, like when my character had a pretzel day. Yep, that was a thing. Hasn't happened but maybe twice in the entire campaign. But if you want to do that, that would be terrific, because that's what Dice and Dungeons is it's a Dungeons and Dragons campaign show. And it's excellent. Our DM has created a world in which we working, which we're adventuring. Sometimes we do a heist. Sometimes we just eat as characters, not as players. Sometimes we do hijinks or we create mayhem. Okay, I mean that kind of thing has been happening, and sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional. Sometimes the plan just doesn't work quite as planned. We've had explosions lately, fires and explosions. The last couple of times we did something. Anyway, you should check that out, because that's what Dice and Dungeons is the Dungeons and Dragons show. This is kind of like a spin-off of that, because we produce our own dungeon tiles. They are amazing, and I will show some to you once I get these parts installed. And this stream started because we produced the dungeon tiles on the 3D printers back there. Then they get primed and then painted in detail. And this stream started as if you're going to be painting the dungeon tiles, why don't you stream the process of painting them? And that's how this got started. That's why it's called Relaxing Painting, because it used to be a lot of painting. But what has happened is that we ended up having all the dungeon tiles we needed, and there weren't any more minifigs to paint our character minifigs and our NPCs and our boss fights. Okay, minifigs, because if you have 3D printed dungeon tiles, you better have real minifig characters moving around in them. And we do. But when there aren't any of those to paint, it was like, well, should we just not stream? And it was, no, keep streaming. And it's like, what should I stream? Well, you get all these models that you never built. This is true. When I retired, I bought way too many models that I never built. laying around taking up prime storage space in the basement. Should probably try to get rid of some of them. Since I was able to buy them, maybe somebody else will buy them. To think about that. So why don't you pull out one of your old models? And so I did, and that's how Submarine Wednesday started. I worked on the submarine just on Wednesdays, and then Mondays and Fridays there wasn't anything else to do. So then Submarine Wednesday became Submarine Week, and then when the submarine was done, because it eventually got finished, it was kind of a shocking event. What was it? Sometime in March. It was like, it's done. The submarine, now what? The submarine is finished. And unless I go back and redo some parts that, were B- level work, there wasn't anything else to do. So it was pull out another one. And went through several alternatives, and with the help of some of the viewers of this stream, decided to work on the Apollo model. And the Apollo model, I really like this model. This the entire Apollo stack. Okay, you can buy command modules, and you can buy lunar models, but this one has everything: the escape tower, the command module, the service module, the lunar module fairing, and the whole thing comes apart. So you can reenact. You can use the model, theoretically at least, to reenact the entire Apollo mission. And the instruction manual shows how to do that. But so this one, no minifigs. I mean, this is just it. So I'm plugging away at it. I got the tower done. I got the service module done. I got the fairing. The parts are ready for assembly. That's something else I can do there in the box over there. Is one of these days, I'll install the hinged fairing leaves on the base. Everything's painted. It's ready to go. It's just that installation is really kind of a pain in the butt. Everything about this has been a pain, and not always entertaining or anything like that. But yeah, it has been. But so I got these ready to go, but I just haven't done it because I like to put off things that I'm not sure about, like the windows on the lamp. Yeah. So how is this coming along? Start to see that the seams are not unseemly. Yeah, it'll do. Let me test fit this on the other side. Great tray exchange here. So this one fit really pretty well this way. And I'm tempted to just cement it in so that it's done. But I don't know. We don't know how the other one's going to fit on the other side, right? So before I do that, let me see how this one goes here. No, that's not good. Let me flip it over. Yeah, it's better this way. Okay. What I really want is a little piece of tape. What I really want is more hands. I want more hands. What am I doing, you might ask? I am putting this here and sticking a piece of tape on it to hold it where I want it, so that when it comes time to cement it, I get that divot out. It's just a divot showing. Let's see if I can get rid of it without making the part too small. These things, all these flaws, show up really in a significant way once they're painted. But there's that has to be filled in. So there, that goes on like that, and this one goes one way or the other. It's the one way. No, how they're going to go on, and they're just, it is really, really badly done. It is what it is. In this case, it just is what it is. So here, that grips really well. Yeah. See I'm just testing the strength. The contact cement holds really well. This is the canopy cement, and it doesn't hold that well. So when I get back to working on the Lunar excursion module windows, which I will have to do eventually, I'm going to initially attempt to do it with the contact cement. Okay. This box is now in the way. These need to be cemented in place. They are as good as they're going to get at the moment. So I'll cement them into place, and then yeah. So you would think, given kind of the struggles here of getting these parts in place and held and everything, that there'd be an evolutionary advantage to having 3 hands, 3 arms. So why not? Why don't we? It just seems like, right now, for what I'm doing here, it would definitely be something that would be helpful and handy. Part, uh, a little bit of work after it is after the cement sets, and I do some filling and sanding. Pretty amazing how poorly it's done. Okay, well, that's sitting on there about as well as it's going to set on there. Let's see if I can do a similarly mediocre job with this one. Times when I'm putting these parts in like this, I put a little more cement on than I should because it dissolves the plastic. And when the parts don't fit that well, the melted plastic oozes out and fills the gap. Yeah, the most professional way of making it work, but it does. It sort of fills the gap, and then it becomes a fairly easy thing to sand it down, and it's a lot easier to. Oh, did I not get any in there? Talk about putting too much in. I didn't put enough in. It's easier to sand down the stuff that oozes out after it fills the gap than it is to fill the gap. Well, not so much that it's easier, it just looks better in the end. You have a filled in gap than a gap. Okay, well that'll work. These parts will end up working. It'll look okay. The cement's set, and maybe even before the stream ends today, I'll put a little bit of filler in around the edges, and then on Monday I can sand it. Go ahead and mask these things. After I put the filler in, I don't need to do the sanding, the final sanding, until I'm ready to paint the outside, and I'm a fair distance away from painting the outside because I need to assemble the two parts first before that, and they will need a lot of sanding to get rid of some seams that show. This just needs to rotate a little bit. Hopefully there's still some give. Yeah. I'm trying to get a non-conforming part to look okay. They look as okay as they're going to get. So I'm going to get that set aside. Clean up the nozzle here a little bit. So a lot of cement buildup on the tip. Mess around with the windows after break. I'm going to try to do some astronaut painting. Why not? Do some relaxing, not very relaxing astronaut spacesuit painting. Here, let me get these out of the way. The very far from historically accurate astronaut spacesuit. Hi, it's going pretty well. I was able to do some significant sanding and filing on these reaction control jet brackets, and now they fit sort of. I've been testing different adhesives for the windows and have decided I'm going to try to use contact cement, and I'm not going to use the plastic that came with the kit because there isn't very much of it. So I'm going to make the windows out of take-out container box tops, this kind of stuff. Yeah. Not this one in particular because it's all full of bubbles. There's some clear spots here, but I got some that are better. Yeah. So I know that the windows are going to be a real challenge, and they'll take a long time. So what I'm going to finish doing today is I got those brackets on. After break, I'm going to put some filler in around the seams Okay. And then I need to mask these because the insides need to be painted blue, even though they're going to hardly show at all. They need to be painted blue, so I'm going to do some masking around the edges and cover the outside so that I can spray paint the insides blue. Yeah, but now I'm going to do some astronaut painting. In order to, let me see, I've got polished gold for the visor, and I've got a really nice light gray for the soles of the boots, and I need a dark gray. I need dark gray for the gloves. Let me check my color chart. So if you look at the official picture of an official moonsuit, you can see that the gloves are dark gray, the visor is gold, the soles of the boots are a lighter gray. There's stuff on it. And these, I painted these kind of a semi-gloss, kind of a satin finish white. They probably should be matte white. I could repaint these with the white primer, which would give it more of a matte finish. But the primer is sort of, I don't know, it's a little dusty sometimes. Okay. This guy sits inside the lem, stands here. He's supposed to, they were always a he then. Okay. Supposed to stand there, and you're supposed to be able to see it peeking through the window as it's landing the lem. So not much of this is going to be visible. Why am I going to paint this is dumb. Why am I even going to paint the gloves and the boots, right? You might ask, why would I even paint the gloves and the boots? Because are you going to be able to see them through the windows? I hold this in, let me hold this sort of in place, and you can look through the windows, and there's an astronaut sort of standing there deep in the background. Well, I'm going to paint the boots and the gloves because I need to do some relaxing painting here on the relaxing painting show. But I am really tempted at this point, especially for the one on the moon. I'm going to ask, and I'm going to get an opinion on break. I'm going to get an opinion on break as to whether before I paint these guys, these are the ones that are sitting in the command module, and you can kind of see them through the open hatch in the window. And then this one just sort of stands around. Whether I should repaint them a matte color or not. This one I'm not going to bother because it's going to be fairly invisible, and yeah. So, and it's going to be my practice. But I do need a gray for the gloves. I think dark gray will be just fine. It's over here somewhere. Get my little bitty brush out. I'm going to paint the gloves first. I'm just going to do that. No, that's dumb. Right in the middle. And then I can't hold it. See if this will work. This isn't going to work for the boots, right? Because the boots are going to be in a sticky tack. Okay, so the boots the soles of the boots will get painted last because I can't paint them while it's in the sticky tack, but the sticky tack lets me hold this and rotate it. And then I don't have to worry about grabbing onto the gloves. So why am I doing the gloves first? Because I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I haven't done the fine detail painting like this in a while. I'm actually going to use my head magnifiers so I can see what I'm doing. It's really nice when the lenses are installed. I get a 2x magnification and a little extra light. Give this a go. Just stir. We have a little vortex spinner thing that gives it professional quality vibrations to stir it up. So if I mess this up, I'm just going to paint over it again. Build up layers and layers of paint on this until it doesn't look awful. I'm a little curious. So I want to look at the, suit. I was just wondering if there was like a metallic rim, like a sort of a silver rim around the gold visor. There sort of is, like around the top a little bit. I don't know. Depending on how my detail painting is going, whether it's going okay or not, I might try to do some of that. Just little bits of stuff. Anyway, now here's some paint. I think this bottle's almost empty. Hopefully the paint will still be good. It's on. I haven't used these in a while either. I'm going to have to learn how to focus. Okay, well, I can kind of see where the gloves. I'm going to bring this down a little bit and cover my head, but you can see if I stay on camera, you should be able to see me putting paint on. With the submarine, I was doing this like every day, tiny little bits of paint. Is painting minifigs. One kind of practice here. Looking through these 2x magnifiers is so I can clearly see what I'm doing. The downside is I can clearly see that it's not perfect. Yeah, this paint doesn't. I painted the whole thing glossy. This paint doesn't like to stick to the glossier surface. Be another reason to repaint these guys the kind of matte white that you get with the primer is that if one wanted to paint the detail, like I'm doing here, it would adhere a lot better. Very carefully painting detail that will be like 99% assuredly invisible if this figure were actually installed in the lunar module. Like the back of the gloves here, where they trying to get the line where they meet the body. It's like, why am I doing this? Because there is no chance that it will be visible. The only way it could possibly be visible is if this figure broke off, or it was cemented on and started rattling around inside the lem and came up against the window with the back of its glove showing against the window. That would be a different problem altogether. Yeah, not having done this in a while, it's kind of interesting. Trying to get the finger detail here. Done this kind of thing on stream in a long, long time. Paint is sort of coming up on the tip of the brush. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, it is. It's like, right. So what medium do you work in? Which I can kind of see the chat window. But it's like, yeah, why am I going to be painting the back of the gloves when the back of the gloves are going to be intentionally invisible? Why not? Because I haven't painted anything in a while, and yeah. Anyway, I'll know it's there. This is a little, yeah. This is getting to be a little reminiscent of the submarine work, where there was just incredible detail in the painting, and I spent a lot of time with this teeny brush and the 2x magnifiers on that model. This is really the first time I'm doing it on this one. I love the ambiguity of some of the model print. It's like it is not clear. Top of the glove is. There's no clear demarcation line. I need to remember to throw this paint away. It's there's not much left. Well, the stuff in the bottle cap is, I don't like to waste paint, so we got into the habit of using the stuff that's in the bottle cap after it's shaken. Gumming up and starting to start. Okay. My pace is appropriate to my age. Put it that way, which is to say slow. I should say, you know, slow and sure, but it's just the second part isn't true. It's just so. Eventually gets done. So what I really kind of miss, and I need to talk to Alexis about this. I know doing rosin printing, getting them set up, the for printing is really kind of a pain, and unless it's something that we need for the Dungeons and Dragons show, it's just a lot of extra work for her to produce minifigs. But I, no matter how much I complain about it, and I complain about everything on the stream, it's just what I do. It's part of being old. Is just people's these old people are always complaining about something. Well, we are, It's just what we do. We don't. It's not really. You don't really have to pay attention to it. It's not like we think everything needs to change. It's just what it is mostly is that it gets harder and harder for us to get to do things the way we used to. How it used to be, and it not being that way anymore is just it's annoying. I mean, at a minimum, it's annoying. At a maximum, it's beyond annoying. It's really a pain. Sometimes literally it's a pain. So, when you hear old people complaining about everything, it's just what we have to do because it's just, you know, not as much fun as it used to be always. Not as easy, at least. Well, okay, I did okay on these gloves. Huh. Well, here's a thing I need to decide. Yeah, it actually turned out all right. Oh, thank you. I should hydrate. Yeah. Yeah, the complaining is a sign of adaptation. The complaining is, I really don't feel like adapting. I'm kind of tired of this. I would like everything to just be easy and nice, and yeah, this adaptation stuff. You know, I don't. You guys know the world isn't going to adapt to us. We adapted to it very easily in the past, but not so much now. Um, So this is I'm not sure about doing this, but because it's kind of unclear in the pictures as well. Um, yeah, I mean it's totally unclear. So in this picture, supposedly this is the same suit, okay? And if you look at the gloves, they're dark gray. The fingertips are blue because they're made out of a different material, so that one could like grasp things. Okay, but in this picture, they're not. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I should do that. I guess I'm not going to. I don't know. It just doesn't. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how to paint these things, and so I produced. I just went online and got pictures of Neil Armstrong's moon suit from where it's displayed in the Smithsonian. So one thing I am going to do, just to let you know about unnecessary detail, I'm going to try this, and why not? I can always repaint it. Well, first of all, I think I'm going to paint these a matte white. I primed them and then painted them this white color that I thought would look really cool. And it's a nice white, but the suits aren't shiny. So I think I'm going to respray them all. The moon standing guy, not this one that I'm working on, not the Lem one, and the sitting in the capsule guys. I'm going to repaint them with the primer so that it's more of a matte color. But one thing I'm going to try when I do the standing on the moon guy, this one, which is not accurate. Okay, none of the connectors are on the model. The connectors are on the sitting in the capsule guys, and they're wrong. They're close to this, but the ones that are the inside the capsule, inside the command module suits, only had one set of connectors, and the model has two. So the sitting in the capsule suit is closer to the moon suit than the moon suit is in the model. Although they did put the camera on. This camera is not exactly like that camera, but it's close. They stuck that on. So one thing I'm going to try to do, and I'm going to kind of play around with this a little bit, is when they were on the moon, they got filthy, right? So I'm going to take this guy and double side tape it to the surface, and spray gray primer. Like if this is over here, I'm going to spray it over here and hope that the overspray kind of covers its feet and bottom. Yeah, I'm going to try to do that before I paint any of the detail on, like the gloves and the camera and stuff. Because I think that would be, if I bother having somebody standing on the moon, let's make it look like it's moon dusted. Okay, so those are the gloves. Yeah, I'm going to do some other little dinky things on this that are not historically accurate because the suit isn't anyway. Just to do it. But I need to try to paint the 15 minutes before the break. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can paint the visor. I'm going to see how that goes. This will be a good thing to do before the break, because if it turns out okay, then I'll be able to have a very nice relaxed break, because I'll need to have a break. And if it doesn't go well, then I'll just say, well, that didn't go very well, and then figure out how to fix it. Okay, thank you. I'm going to do that. I've got a bunch of different blue colors. I'm going to find one that kind of matches. And after break, the paint on the gloves will be dry. And then I'm going to paint the fingertips, because it's pretty clear that it's on there. It's kind of a light blue color. I'll look at my color chart and find the right color and do that. They're kind of bland just sitting there anyway. So this is polished gold. Hopefully it'll work for the visor. Again, I'm painting on a glossy surface, so I don't know how this will adhere. Let's find out. Yeah, not very well. Not very well at all. Nope. We put 2 coats on. It's always a pain doing that. The color's good. Okay, what I'm going to do is, this is kind of gelatinous right now, is I'm going to put a thin coat on that I know I'll need to have at least 2, maybe 3 coats. See how it turns out. Clear to the top of the, yeah, I mean, so unclear that I actually went over where the edge of the visor is. This is really crappy. Okay, I'm going to say right now that this paint isn't, unless it levels itself somehow, it's too viscous right now to be effective. What I may end up having to do, I may end up having to just like, well, there's a couple things I can probably do. One is I am going to try to do several thin coats as much as I can. But if after break the brush marks are still real obvious, I can thin the paint. I might just have to, sand this layer off. I don't know. So my technique is working here. I'm getting the paint pretty much where I want it, but the paint itself is not good. Paint is too viscous, too jelly-like to give it the surface, the smooth mirror-like surface that it should have. So, okay, the better part of valor here, actually is to say this is not working. I'm going to wipe it off before it dries. It just isn't working. And I will need to significantly change the consistency of the paint in order for it to work. The problem isn't necessarily that I'm painting over a glossy surface. In some ways, that should help make it look mirror-like. The problem is that the paint is too jelly-like, it's not leveling. At least it cleaned off pretty well. Sometimes things just do not work. They just don't. So I can thin that paint. I've got another gold colored paint. Let me see what that's like in terms of consistency. It's gold. I'm going to get this out and see what it's like. What I really want is paint to be sort of the of airbrush consistency, kind of thin so that it goes on like that, like some of these metallics that I've got. Because it needs to level mirror like, and this is really fine for like painting rivets and detail and lines and things like that on a minifig, but it's not working on the visor of the astronaut figure. This is a little bit more liquid. I'm going to test it on here. It has the same problem of not covering very well, but it's also not gumming up. So, well, okay, let's give this a go. Let's wipe it off again, right? Think, what I need to use a bigger brush, because this little brush just kind of pushes the paint around. You need to use a bigger brush and hope that I can get the lines delineated well with a bigger brush. Not sure I want this paint any thinner. Just going to practice again. Let me see what my brush options are here. I have very many intermediates, Got some God hand ones. Let's try this one. Pick one, put that aside. This is the thinner one. So if I plan to do like 2 or 3 coats, this isn't working either, because it's instead of applying the paint, it takes the paint off. Okay, the paint isn't coming off the brush onto the surface. So that's not going to work. Let me try this. This is going to be very hard to control the lines. Okay, well, it looks like what I'm going to have to try to do, besides obviously putting on multiple coats, is after break, I'm going to use a little bitty brush and outline it, get the edges, and then use a brush like this to fill it in. So this visor now, this visor is turning into quite an ordeal. This brush is working. This brush will work really well for getting the edges, the lines. Okay, well, that's the post break task here, is to get the visor painted and to paint the fingertips on the gloves blue. Unless I take a break, I am not going to get anything done with any kind of consistency or skill. So I'll just put it that way. Okay, well, this has been experimentation with different paints. It's been a little bit more interesting than sanding away and filing pieces that don't fit very well. Yeah, not very well at all, really. But okay, well, that's why I've got plastic filler and sandpaper, is to try to make those things shouldn't look at poorly fitting parts through a 2x magnifier. It's too discouraging. Clean up. I'm going to clean up a little bit of mess here. Get my brushes ready for the next stage. There's always something before break. Finding the right blue. What's the right blue for the fingertips? You see what I'm seeing? I'm seeing my highly sophisticated homemade color chart. Because the only way you can tell what color a paint really is to paint it. None of these colors are perfect. This azure comes close, though. The azure comes close. So I think unless there's, these are all greens and browns. Okay, azure it is. We're going to have azure fingertips on the moon gloves. And we are definitely going to respray these figures with the primer so that it's less glossy. For a couple of reasons. One is the suit is not glossy. The second is that the paint is not adhering very well. And if I'm going to do the detail on some of these guys that are actually going to be seen, you'll actually be able to see them inside the command module or standing on the moon, unlike this one, where the only thing you'll see is the part that I can't get done, which is the visor. Oh, I might need to do that. But no. So I'm going to just keep plugging away at this. I'm going to use a little brush to outline the gold visor and use the larger brush to fill in. Try to keep the paint very thin so that it doesn't show a lot of brush marks, and then put 2 or 3 coats on. And then in the interim, I'll do little details like the fingertips and the belt buckle and stuff like that. So this is just going to be inconsequential, invisible, but kind of fun detail work because I haven't done that in a while. Otherwise, the not exciting part is putting filler in around the edges of the brackets that hold the reaction control jets on the back of the lunar module. That's the top. So so there's that, and then this gold paint is working much better than the other one in terms of its consistency. If I made it any thinner, it's not going to cover it all. What I was thinking of doing was using some very fine sandpaper and sanding down the visor so that the paint would adhere better, but no, not going to do that. Break time. I keep talking, not taking my break. I need to take my break. And I'm going to be back, and I'm going to be playing around with this astronaut guy to try to make it look like something. I don't know. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. If not, repaint the whole thing and start over. That's one thing that's nice about the one part of the model that is essentially useless. I mean, you're not gonna see it. So that's the fun thing to play with. Glasses, yeah, there they are. So I can find my way up the stairs. I'm going to be back in like a half hour. I say that sometimes I'm back in 20 minutes, sometimes I'm back in 45, but I'm going to take a break, try not to get too distracted with anything else, and then come back and find my Azure Paint. And then the other thing I should do, I haven't done this in a while, is show off our dungeon tiles. Green is not Azure. I'll do that after break too. Turquoise is not Azure. Yeah. Can't I find Azure? In my color chart, Azure. Yeah, there. It looks kind of purplish, but I don't know, when it dries, it looks right. Okay, so I am going to take a break. Here I am breaking. I'm going on break, and then I'm going to come back and play around with the visor some more, see how that goes. At some point, get out the spackling compound and fill in the seams around these things that I cemented on earlier. And then, depending on how this progresses, keep working on the astronaut figure or go back to trying to get the windows to work. Oh, and I need to tape this. I absolutely need to tape this yet today. I do need to do that so that I can paint the inside blue. Yeah, okay. I'm going to be back in a bit. And I'm going to play with the astronaut thing until about 1:20, 1:30, and then take the last half hour to do masking on these so that I mask the outside and then paint the inside blue. Oh, see you in a bit. The break ended. Okay. Took a little longer than I thought. One of our dogs was demanding attention for a reason that was unclear. And I kept guessing and guessing wrong, I guess. But anyway, back again. And I have decided definitely to paint these guys matte, just so that the detail paint adheres better, and also because real space suits were not shining. And now I'm going to work on this astronaut a little bit longer. See if I can get it working or not in terms of the visor color and the gold visor paint. And what else? Oh yeah, and then I need to mask these guys so I can paint the inside blue. And after I do that, then they're getting really close to the process of trying to get the windows in, get that working. So it'll probably take up like most of the next 2 weeks at the rate that's going. Well, I managed to get the gloves painted dark gray, just like the real suit. So the paint, can't tell. I'll have to look at it under the head magnifier, which I'm going to wear as I paint the visor, because otherwise I can't really see it very clearly. Yeah, anyway, this astronaut is kind of, it's not really important to the model because you won't be able to see it, but it gives me an opportunity to test, see if I still have any kind of painting technique left anymore, whether I can still do it or not, and also test different colors and consistencies of paint. Using this little brush to try to get the outline. Yeah, this was a mistake, not the gold paint. The mistake was painting the model that sort of semi-gloss white, which not only doesn't look right, but the paint doesn't adhere to it. So, yeah, this might not turn out too well. The solution ultimately might be to just reprime it. Here is to try to minimize the brush marks on the visor by putting a thin coat of paint on. Hopefully it will level itself, and then doing a second coat. If that doesn't work, then the solution will be to try to sand this paint off. Try it again, or to just reprime the entire model. Doing okay there until I just the edge of the brush was. Need to stop messing with that. And what I need to do is clean up that little spot. Made a mistake with. Weird. Well, that's not bad there because I'm going to be painting that another color. I'm going to let that dry and just see what happens when I put a second coat on. It might turn out okay. I don't know. I'm going to be doing some non-essential detailing here. The picture, one of the pictures of the moon suit has the tips of the fingers on the gloves blue because it's a different material for gripping stuff. And what the heck? I'm going to do that. I'm going to paint the fingertips blue. Azure paint, which hasn't been used in a long time. It needs probably some serious stirring here. The little ball bearing that is in there to help stir it up is actually bouncing around. That's usually a sign that at least the pigment that's settled to the bottom is loosening. Yeah, anyway, see how this goes. Just the tips of the fingers of the gloves. Right here, there's an issue. The yeah, it might look okay. The fingers on the model kind of run together there. Not distinct. nailed, and then I bumped the brush. Okay, I'm gonna have to get out the dark gray again to fix this issue there. I had it in it is the thing that most often happens when I have an oops painting is getting the brush to and from the work surface. And this was getting the brush away from it, and I moved it up instead of straight out. And I ran those two fingers together. It's a little thing, but it shows, and I don't like it, so I'm gonna try to fix it. Well, if nothing else, the visor is shiny. The gold is pretty shiny. I don't know how long it's going to take to dry. Can't do anything until I can't fix the fingers until the blue is dry, and I can't do anything with the visor until the paint is dry. There's other details. Well, there's a connector there that I can paint. I'm going to paint it red. Kind of a glossy red. I wonder if if any of these reds that I've got have a little gloss in them. I actually have a gloss red. I used it in ever. Let me find it. I can even get it stirred up again. Turn this light off while I'm mixing it, because it's going to have to take a while to get mixed here. Oh, so what should I mutter on about while I'm watching paint dry? We haven't had an opportunity to watch paint dry. Well, you did when I painted these antennae earlier on Wednesday before the power outage. But not since then. So, yeah, we're getting to watch paint dry for the first time in quite a while. I wonder if I can even open this. It's a bit, yeah, it's okay. Huh. It's pretty surprising. So there's supposed to be like 6 connectors on the front of the suit, and there is one. There's blue ones and red ones. This one is going to become red. Well, almost. Which depends on the angle of viewing. It looks. There, now it's got a red dot on its front where one of the connectors is supposed to be. I want kind of a sort of a dark silver. I'm looking at my metallics here. I think I want the gunmetal one. There's silvers, chainmail silver, maybe. It's just a little. There's a little buckle on the bottom of the. Okay, I'm putting some things on here that aren't historically accurate, but it doesn't matter because the whole thing is not. Okay, and so I'm just ditzing around with some of the little detail here, just to do it while I'm waiting for the visor paint to dry. Basically, what I'm doing is tiny little dots. I'm doing dots on the. Oh, look at that! It's another one of those. It happens sometimes with these, where the cover doesn't cover the novel completely, and it coats. And there's a coating of paint. It's one dot. There's a little bar across here. I don't know what that bar is about. It's going to be this color. And then there's some buckles on the belt. And why not? They're not pink buckles. So totally non-historically correct embellishments to the suit. Just because. Dot there. It needs to come off if I can get it off. It's symmetric, so I'll just leave it there. Got it's got some color on it. Base detail is now painted just to do it. Let me get the. I'm going to do the dark gray fixing I need to, on the fingertips in places, they're absolutely totally invisible unless you've got the 2x magnifier on it, but I can see that it's there and it annoys me, so I'm going to try to fix it. Just some of the space between two of the new blue fingertip spots. Got the blue paint got to where I didn't want it. And and same two fingers on the other hand. Same issue. Okay, well now the gloves have little blue fingertips on it, just like the real gloves did. The gloves are probably right now, in terms of color and detail, the only thing on this model that are historically accurate. The rest of it is just giving the impression of being a moon suit, being an authentic representation of one. Gray paint. Okay. Well, yeah. He's all leaning over. Go back. Go back. Take what? I need to work on the visor again. And then after I do the visor again, I will work on masking. I know it's not as much fun as watching me sort of put little infinitesimal dots of paint on a thing that you can't see. But I need to mask the outside of this so I can paint the inside blue. Let me test this. The only way you can see the inside is through these windows. And yes, unfortunately, when you look through the windows, you can see where the seam is. What I'm kind of hoping I could do was like just mask the edges, and I'm going to have to do that, but I need to get the paint right on up to. Okay, actually what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to mask the outside, and I'm going to get blue paint. I'm going to get blue paint on the edges that will get cemented together. Okay, and then later I'll just sort of scrape it off a little bit before I cement it. It's not that big a deal if paint gets on the outside, because the whole seam, all of these seams are going to be filled and sanded down. So because you can, I don't know what you would want to, but it's now possible to, and there's a divot there I didn't see before. I need to fill that in. if you're to look through these little bitty windows, you will be able to see where the seam is, and if there's a white stripe there, it will look really pretty weird. So, yeah, I'm going to get blue paint where I really don't want it in order to make sure that I get it where I do want it. And there's a dimple there that when I do the filler, which I should do right after I mess up the visor here. This is a second coat on the visor, just trying to get it to look a little more uniform. It's the brush. Why is my brush stiff? I picked this brush because it wasn't. I need really soft crystals. Oh my, this is not good. Nope, 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 nope. Not working. Thinking the way this is going, it's going to look okay from a distance. It will not look really good close up. But from a respectful viewing distance, that is to say, respectful of the low-level skill of the modeler, it'll probably look okay. I mean, it's going to look golden shiny, which is, what it needs to be. There are edge issues. I will deal with them with a little bitty brush later. Trying to get the lumps out right now. Okay. Well, there's its golden face. Well, anyway, that's kind of what the moon suit is not really supposed to look like, but it's what this one looks like. I need to paint the boots yet, and I don't know. I'll mess around with the visor a little bit. I might I might take like a really fine emery cloth and try to polish it. I wonder if that would work. And I need to do a little bit of adjusting on the very, very periphery of it. Let's do that now. Just in the corner here. There, pretty much. And now it's time to stop messing with it. One of my favorite things is messing with it just one dot of paint too much. I have messed up things in the past. I've just, oh, that little dot that needs correction, and then it gets overcorrected, and the whole thing had to be redone. Yep, that actually did happen more than once. Actually, the most recent was not that long ago with the inside of the server module. Okay, take these off. Now I'm going to do the very unexciting stuff, just to put some paint away. Put this aside. My glasses on underneath this. I don't know. Just moving stuff around. I need to apply some filler to some spots, and for that I need just use this little scrap of paper. I'm very good at using scraps of stuff when necessary. So this stuff I'm using is spackling compound, which is designed for walls, and I've just found that for a lot of purposes, this is actually the best filler that I have for the model. It just, it doesn't dry to a nice, smooth, hard finish like the rest of the plastic. It still shows a little variation in consistency and surface texture. But it doesn't dissolve the plastic like two of the others do. Well, one of the others, the one that dries to the best finish that sands to a really nice smooth surface, dissolves the plastic. And so the part that I filled might come out looking really good, but the area around it doesn't. I'm going to put more than enough filler in all of the places where it looks like there might be gaps, okay? Because it'll get sanded out later. I'll make sure that what needs to be filled does get filled. And when I sand it carefully later, what doesn't need to be filled will be unfilled because it'll sand off. This stuff goes on pink. Some wall primers, I like that. The primer you use on your house walls. They go on pink and then they dry white. Said before, I don't know if that's designed that way, that they put some sort of dye in it that starts out pink, or whether the material they use just happens to be that way. Not sure which way it goes. I know this looks really sloppy, and it is really sloppy. But pretty much, I just want to make sure that there's more than enough filler in the gaps so that when I sand it later, I don't end up with just more gaps that need to be filled that hadn't been filled when I was initially putting on the filler. So it doesn't do you any good if it doesn't fill it in. Yeah, anyway, after this unexciting, come on. Now I've got it. Now I've got a huge mess. It wasn't squeezing out. I've got a blob. definitely a gap there that needs to be in. What I've been saying with these seams is that I can't make the seams go away entirely. Even if the filler fills the gap, it's still going to show as a surface texture difference, but it would look more like, I'm hoping, more like maybe a welded seam than just a gap, because a spacecraft should not have gaps. It just shouldn't. It like lets the air out into the vacuum of space and would be very bad for the occupants. Yeah, so that looks messy, but after I sand it down, it won't look messy. I can show you on the other one where it looked messy and now it doesn't look messy. Right, the messiness. This toothpick is now trash. I'm going to put it with this is now trash paper towel. So these parts here, all around here, you can still see there's some filler showing. Okay. Yeah, there are gaps around there, and then I overfilled it and then sanded it down, and now it just looks like there's maybe hopefully a welded seam. Although looking at it again, it doesn't look all that terrific. Too much piled up in the corner here. After it's primed, I may end up doing a little bit of readjusting, some resanding, some refilling. It's hard to tell, like along here especially, I can kind of feel the edges, but the top piece sort of extends over the bottom piece. And I could spend a good deal of time filing it down so that they were more even, but I don't know how it's going to look. It might be okay. Like that's kind of intentional because it's a bracket that's added on. So let's see how it looks after it's been primed. I need to tape this up so that I can paint the inside blue. And I'm going to use cheap painter's tape because there's no paint on this. It's not primed yet, so I can use the inexpensive tape if I can find it. And I can't, so I'm going to go to the tape drawer. I have a tape. Oh, I knew I was going to forget something. I did. I forgot my hydration. I had some narrower tape, some narrower blue tape, but I don't know where it went. It's just going to be harder to work with. How do I lose things like this? How do I manage to knock things over when they're not even where I'm touching them? It's right here. Yeah, see, it's much narrower, and so it's much easier to work with. I'm just going to start here. I'm going to explain why I'm doing the wrong thing on purpose. Okay. The inside has to be painted blue. The edge really should not be painted at all because that's where the cement goes. When I cement these two parts together, and the cement will dissolve any paint that's on there and make a mess. But the way this is designed, I mean, you can look through the windows and you can see, if you really turn it the right way, you can see the seam line. And if I got the tape in a way that kept the paint from getting right up to the edge, then what I'll end up with is a white line where I don't want a white line. So I am going to intentionally get paint all over this edge. And then when it comes time to do the cementing, I will just scrape it off. So part of the reason I'm doing it this way is to make sure that I get paint all the way up to the edge, even though it's going to create work later. It's also much easier, as you can see, to apply the tape like that instead of trying to get it on the edge. But the main part is to not get blue paint all over the outside. I can play with the edge. Just I've done that many times in the past, is getting paint on the edge where it's supposed to be cemented, and then just scraping it off. You can do that without really affecting the plastic underneath very much at all. But at least this way I'll actually be able to get it done too. Yeah, of course there's always little bits like there's a protrusion there. Yay, protruding in the way. And work around that. I'm going to need to buy more of this size of tape. Is it like 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch or something? I don't know. I don't use it when I'm taping for painting a wall. This is too narrow to be used, but for this purpose, it's working. It's just about right. The only nice thing about this so far is painting the inside blue now is that if there's any overspray, when it gets sprayed onto the white surface, I haven't even primed the surface yet, the outside, so there's much opportunity to fix it, to get the paint off. That little tab thing, because that's going to show on the outside. Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the other side. It of course comes in 2 halves, right? Yeah, I can't imagine trying to get the tape around the edge like this within, the lifespan of an average human. This whole thing is moving along, at such a snail's pace anyway, that the completion of the Apollo model within the lifespan of an average human is beginning to look more and more hypothetical than real. I need to remember to tape. Not going to be able to see the insides of these windows from the outside of the window, but I don't want to get paint all over the outside of the opening, do I? No, that would be bad. So I'm going to I'm going to somewhat unsuccessfully tape over the window openings from the inside. Ooh, a blue-eyed limb. Yeah. So if nothing else works, I can just put tape on the inside and we'll have a blue-eyed limb. It actually looks kind of decent. I like that. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll just do that instead of trying to put clear windows in. That would be different and it would be okay. You wouldn't be able to see in. So you wouldn't be able to see the blue paint that I'm going to be putting on the inside of it if I made it a blue-eyed lamb. But that's not the only part, the large part of the service module. I went out of my way to paint it gray-green, which is like the primer color, kind of. And it's in a place where unless one broke it apart, wouldn't be able to see it. So it wouldn't be the only time on this model where something got painted that didn't, well, even the astronaut I was just painting like this. I'm not going to be able to see the gloves with all the cute little blue finger points on it, or the boots. It's kind of nice being able to do something like this without having to be real careful. I mean, kind of careful in that I want to make sure I'm covering it all, but not like exceptionally careful in terms of how much the tape extends beyond the edge, or that kind of thing. Knowing that I have multiple opportunities for correction later if something were to go amiss or awry. Things I want to do. Things on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons do have a propensity toward awryness. Getting oopsed. Oopsing is a feature. Is a feature of this show. Well, this is coming along, and I remember to tape over the windows. That was good. Some of the paint is going to leak around the outside, but the seams are going to require a lot of sanding anyway. So blue paint, going over the edge a little bit is not going to be much of a problem because it'll just be sanded away when I'm fixing the other problems. All right, I need to cover the outside of this with paper, which I happen to just maybe barely have enough here. Waste not, want not. clumsily tape this. I want to clumsily tape this on. I want the tape to stick to the tape. Come on, stick to yourself. I'm not terribly adept at this, as you can tell, but unlike the astronaut detail, where I was trying to be quite cautious and all, this is not. Yeah, it'll get covered. Let's just say that. One way or the other, this is going to get covered over with paper and tape, and it'll look really scuzzy and making, it's just kind of a messy look right now, and I don't care. I mean, it's just fine as long as it gets covered. This is a good time of the stream to do this. Lose focus a little bit, start getting impatient. If I'm going to be doing anything at this time in the stream, like applying tape on a part that, like that, doesn't need to stick to anything there. So that's where I put it. Yeah, it sticks to my fingers really well, but it doesn't stick to itself. Yeah, I'm giving this. I did the edging okay. Okay, the edges are coming out mostly okay, but the actual covering with paper part, I'm giving this. This is like C minus messiness. And the more I do this, the more I don't care about how it looks. Darn it, just just get covered. Can you tell? Can you tell that I'm not caring how it looks? I can tell by how really messy it is and how much tape I'm wasting just sticking stuff onto things that aren't sticking to itself. Now I need to, next time I make a hardware store purchase, buy more of this narrow tape that I use only for, this is not relaxing. The not relaxing part of sticking tape on everything. I'm just going to stick tape everywhere. Just look at just jamming tape on things and speaking in a grumpy tone of voice about taping stuff and things like that. There's enough tape there. There's enough tape there to choke a horse. Biggest issue is it doesn't stick to itself. Look at that. It just doesn't. It's just, what does it take to get it to behave? I'm just gonna stick like a half a roll of tape on this, just to say, take that tape. There, look at that. This is, don't look at that part. Look at this part. What is with this? I said a half a roll of tape. I didn't mean it literally, but it's turning out to be that way. No, push the tape down again before I spray paint it. The whole inside of this is going to get painted blue, light blue. And I always check the adhesion of the tape before I spray paint it, but that was just awful. I mean, it just got messier and messier as it went along, and I cared less and less about the mess. Well, I'm starting over on the back half of the lunar module, lunar excursion module here, with a new attitude of being a little bit more careful. And when it comes time to put the paper on, maybe trying to just being a little more careful. Yeah. Well, the visor of the paint just didn't lay on flawlessly with a mirror-like surface. I'll just say that. Okay. It's just kind of lumpy. So actually, I'm going to try something on this, maybe not today, but next week after the paint has thoroughly dried, because if it's not dry, it'll really be a mess. What I'm going to try to do actually is polish it. Polish the paint. You can do that sometimes. If the paint is thick enough, and the polishing is fine-grained enough, is to polish the paint. I'm going to try that. There's nothing to lose. I mean, there's no downside to trying that. The worst that'll happen is that I'll wear the paint off too far and then have to repaint it. But since it doesn't look very good the way it is, repainting it is an okay thing. I think on Monday I'm gonna do that. I'm going to try to polish the gold paint on the visor with some very, very fine-grained emery cloth and find out whether I can't actually make it look more mirror-like. And if it works, that's great. And if it doesn't work, well, then I will try something else. Yeah. Now you're sticking when I don't want you to. I'm trying to get the tape into that little corner. No, this will work out okay. By the time I'm done taping this and masking the outside with a sheet of paper, it'll be time to wrap up, at which time I will talk more about Dice and Dungeons in our Dungeons and Dragons show, and why you need to watch it because it's so good. I wonder how this will. I don't know. We'll see how this all turns out. Hopefully, it'll turn out okay. Way more than I needed. But yet, whatever width this is, 3/4 of an inch maybe. Put on the next hardware shopping list, shopping cart. Or just make a trip to the hardware store and pick some up. Then I can see what the width is and not have to worry about it. Okay, let's see if I can attach to the paper to the outside of this a little bit less horribly than the last time. Bending tabs, my folding tabs. There we go. See, that's almost neat. It's almost like a Christmas package, right? Believe it or not, you probably won't after watching me do this. I am really quite good at wrapping boxes for gifts. I have very neat corners. I hardly use any tape, so there's not tape everywhere. But I know it's hard to believe watching me mess with this. I believe it myself. Well, it's better than the other one. That was really messy. I mean, that was a really messy wrapping job. This is a little less awful in terms of although I should have looked where I was putting the tape. Where I put it, or it was just a gap there. And again, the main problem I'm having is the tape doesn't stick to itself very well. All right. Well, this is like taped all around the edges, and I'll check that later and get the tape to adhere to itself, in places like this before I spray it But I've got the right color paint now, and I haven't used it yet. And yeah, it'll be a good thing to do. Try it out, see how the paint works, what color it looks like, especially in this setting because, you're not going to be able to see it very much. And if I decide to make the windows opaque, which I can't see because I covered them up, then it'll be even even less important. Anyway, this one's really pretty, really not holding together very well. Well, it'll be interesting to see what it looks like when I take the tape off on these parts where it's covered kind of poorly. Okay. Oh my, look at that. It's not sticking to itself at all here. Cut this down. So there's more tape on tape surface. Guess that's better. Like I said, I'll check all of this before I spray paint it for real. But it's on. I'd say it's adequate for the purpose of what I'm going to be doing next, which is spray painting all of that blue. Recap. It looks like I got hardly anything done today. As usual, this is like a typical relaxing painting session with Tyson Dungeons. Say I did these because I did these on Wednesday before the power went out. I practiced a little bit with adhesives for the windows, and the model cement works pretty well. I mean, it holds really well, but if it gets over the edge, there's no way to clean it up. The contact cement holds really quite well, and I can clean it up. And the clear cement for the canopy cement just doesn't hold that well, even though it has some other advantages. So when I time to put the windows in, I'm going to do my best to use the contact cement. So I played around with that. I got some astronaut detailing done. I got the gloves done. I did some extraneous little detail things because they were there. And I got some gold on the helmet visor that I need to try to smooth out. And I'm going to play with that on Monday with some fine grained, really very fine sandpaper or emery cloth, really fine, to try to polish that. And it might work. If it does, that'll be great. And if it doesn't, then I'll repaint it. I'm going to take it off of here because otherwise it's going to fall and cause a problem. I attached a couple of little bits that you can't see because they are now under the paper and the tape. And I got these taped up so that I can paint the inside of this blue. Yep, it's supposed to be blue. And if you look through the windows, these are going to be windows. You'll be able to see the blueness of it all over the inside. And so that'll be something I'll do over the weekend. So on Monday, I can unmask it and go on to the next steps. And at this point, the next steps are doing just a little bit of sanding on the bits that I attached today where I put some filler in. And then trying to figure out how to get the windows in. I might spend the entire stream on Monday just trying different things on the windows before hopefully I end up with some success. We'll see. Excuse me. Well, I'm not going to bother covering these bits up because I'm going to be taking them away to paint. The brushes over here where they're, kind of accessible. These bits are done. These are my window test bits. This is something I need to fill in a hole on the top of that once it's put together. Yeah, so I get that painted blue, clean up the edges a little bit so that I can cement it together. Work really hard at trying to get the windows put in. Hi, Who, just in time for a closing credits flip, right? Yeah. But thanks for popping in at the very end. At least haven't done a flip yet. Oh yeah, I'm going to paint these guys matte white. Not matte like in Matthew, but matte like in M-A-T-T-E. I put so much tape on there, and all I need to do is keep putting more tape on to hold the tape. Yeah, sometimes there are days like that. Wasn't that a song? Sometimes there'll be days like this, my mama said. I remember my mom was saying that. I just remember, what I remember is learning that through experience, is that there are just days like that. I need another box. Fortunately, I have one. I have a box. Here is a box into which I can put a paper towel over these parts so that they don't get messed up. I can find another paper towel somewhere at some point, but I can do these like this. I'm going to need, for these astronauts, piece of cardboard and double-sided tape. I'm going to need this because I want to hold them down. I'll take that up with me. This is my going upstairs to a well-ventilated area so I can spray paint stuff. Oh, yeah, flip. Let me do that before I run out of time. I have made such a mess here today. Now let's flip the big sear. Two to four. Two sear, four not sear. You know, this should be like a cooking show. One thing that would be nice is if this was like a cooking show, is that someone else would clean up when I was done. And then the next time I came back down, the work surface, there'd be a lot of room. It would be dusted off. I wouldn't have little bottles of paint just sitting everywhere, getting in the way. I wouldn't be knocking things over because I wouldn't be doing anything with them. Yeah, I mean, it would be like that. I would like that. But it's not. Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons. Dice and Dungeons is all about Dungeons and Dragons. This stream started because we make our own dungeon tiles. I will very quickly show you them at the very end of the thing. These are printed on the 3D printer back there. And originally, the streaming show started because after they were primed, they needed to be painted, and these are all hand painted. This is base coated with a tan color and then washed with a really nice reddish brown wash to make it look like wood, and it brings out the grain and everything else. And then we hand paint. This is all hand painted and then detail in the stucco patterns. And the really cool thing about these tiles is that under these plates are ball magnets, and the ball magnets allow them to adhere to each other, magnet to magnet, regardless of the orientation. Okay, you don't need a special surface or anything. They attach to each other. Because they're printed in one piece, horizontal and vertical, they're very sturdy. The walls don't break off. Okay, the floors don't pop up. Nothing like that. There's one solid piece except for the little platform here, the flat piece of plastic that goes on and holds the magnets in place. And so, yeah. And if you were to watch our D&D show from time to time, you would see very elaborate dungeons made out of many more than just 4 of these. And they even have wonderful, cool little features like opening doors, okay, which are also carefully hand-painted on this stream sometime in the past, including the little knockers and the nails on the hinges. Cool, right? It's not just the inside. If you build a building like this and you go outside, okay, you go outside, the outsides are painted. So if you had a street scene out here, then the building, the outside of the building would be just as detailed and cool looking as the inside of the building. So that's what Dice and Dungeons, this relaxing painting started because we relaxingly painted these dungeon tiles. But now we have as many as we need for the show. And I haven't been given any more to paint. So I've been working on other models like the Apollo that you have been seeing very slowly and painfully coming together. And eventually it will look like that. This part and this part are done. I've got 2 of them done. I've got the fairing for the lunar module painted and ready to be assembled. And now I'm working on the LEM. And then the final part I'm going to do is the command module. And the command module is last because I wanted to do some detail on the instrument panel, which is very badly detailed in the model. And so I got some pictures of what the instrument panel should look like. It's supposed to look, that's the Lunar Excursion module. Yeah, this is what the command module. Can you imagine? And when you're sitting there and all you get all these little switches everywhere and you're supposed to are they labeled? I don't know. Yeah, probably. You can barely see it. So yeah, it looks really kind of confusing and overwhelming, doesn't it? Well, I'm not going to be able to paint all of this detail, this onto the instrument panel of the model, but I'm going to make an effort to try to get some of the bigger pieces, like the horizon indicator and, some banks of switches and some of these little dials and turn knobs and things. I'm going to try to get some of that done. We'll see. Anyway, otherwise it's just painted light blue and it's just a blob, like the inside of the lunar module is going to be. So there, I'm working on this. Dice and Dungeons is all about its Dungeons and Dragons show. Be sure to watch it with live chat on Sundays at 2, or even on YouTube, where there's a podcast later, giving you an opportunity to catch up with old episodes. Thanks for being a follower here or on the D&D show. Thanks for being a subscriber on YouTube. And if you really like it, go to patreon.com/DiceAndDungeons, patreon.com/DiceAndDungeons, and become a patron. And if you become a patron, you get access to the DM notes for our D&D sessions, our improv warm-ups, which are usually very funny, sometimes just silly, but funny silly, okay? And at certain levels, you can even be named in the credits of the show, which is really kind of a cool thing. You could become an executive producer. I don't know if we have an executive producer level, but if you want to be one, I'm sure that it could be arranged. Let's see. Monday, I will be back, and what I will be doing is unmasking the parts that I spray painted the inside of blue to see, if they need additional work or not. I'll be spending a lot of time trying to get the windows in place because it's just a difficult thing to do, just much more difficult than I thought it would be. And then once the windows are successfully installed, I'll be joining the 2 halves of the lunar module together. Then things will actually move along really quite quickly once I do that. Once they're joined together and the cement sets, I'll be filling and sanding the seam around the halves so that it doesn't look like two pieces just sort of jammed together. But it looks like one piece as close as I can get it. And then at some point, then I'll spray paint the outside of it. I've got a really nice metallic gunmetal color that should work really quite well. It'll be close to the color on the box top of the model that was completed by a super duper master modeler. And then little bits of assembly like putting the antenna on. And then the ascent stage, the taking off from the moon, carrying the astronauts component of the lunar module will be done, I'm going to guess, I'm not sure what's going to be coming up. I might end up having to, there's a likelihood that I'm going to be gone for like a week and a half starting next week sometime, Wednesday. I'll fill you in on Monday, but I might not be getting back to this for a while because something's come up that we need to, there's life. And life is happening, and I might be gone for a bit. But I will be back on Monday, and I'll be doing some stuff that I've been talking about doing then on this. Yeah. Thanks again. Be a follower, be a sponsor, be a patron, and take care. See you next week, Monday.